our entire activity is gonna be on work. We have no minutes to read. And we have no short-term rentals to look at, and we have no good excuses not to do what we're supposed to be doing. We do have printouts. Everybody get one? Yeah, grab a one.
Is it different?
I thought a bit about how we should go about doing this. And I felt the best way to go about doing this would be to open it up first, let everybody kind of everybody drive all at once. And then if that doesn't work, then I'll start asking either a person or we'll assign somebody to be the primary driver. But I'd rather get more input and get a lot of it rather than like me talking all the time and then you guys yelling at me. Or vice versa, or somebody else, just monopolizing the floor. I'd like to get as much input as we can. Yeah, unless somebody's got a better idea. If somebody's got a great idea. I mean, we all have different backgrounds about how facilitations work. And my thought is because we haven't done this really. We really haven't done this before as a group, and I don't know what the strengths are of our group. And so rather than try to assume, which about that, I'm not going to do that. I'd rather we start figuring out our dynamic as a group, and then if things don't work, I have artificial ways of facilitating. I trained in it, but I don't want to do that to start.
Well, we'll take it in order as it is in the sheet.
I think we can start,
and
at
then
least.
just kind of go around.
And obviously some of us have more greater opinion about some things than not. And Linda, I said tonight I want to, I don't want to be Gladys Knight, I want to be the Phipps. I want to be the one who's just on the backup, not the primary voice. So she'll take a shot. Scott?
What do we want to start with? Like,
What?
did we miss anything
Who?
versus going line by line? I mean, any glaring things that I didn't catch in the minutes? Or just number one, fire department? I mean,
Just number one fire department, Scott can make comments.
If you prefer, we'll run it this way. Go counter
Would you
clock.
rather go that way, Scott?
It doesn't matter to me. I'm happy to make comments. I mean, I haven't really focused much on the fire department. Where are we at in terms of new versus remodel? Where's the fire department? I thought that new would have been the working choice.
I think they're starting from I wouldn't say they're starting from scratch, but I do think they are kind of reevaluating what a remodel of that facility would take. And what the cost would be and what the pros and cons and what they lose and what they gain.
And so
And the new is still fighting over if it's new here, if it's new there, because new still could be there. And not move it, just tear that one down and rebuild it. So, and there is potential discussion on property outside on 16. But the property is owned by somebody else, so we have to purchase that property from them and then.
And remember, it's the selectmen that make the decision, not the fire department.
right, but
So they're still
it's the
gathering.
fire department saying this is what we'd like or need or.
Well, aren't they're opening up the firehouse in September
Mhm.
on Tuesdays.
Mhm.
So the public can come in and take a look. And it's a way of swaying the public's interest in understanding that some sort of new facility is needed.
That's sort of 2.0. They did that same thing a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
And I hate to be treading on your grade, Scott, but to answer your question, they had a rather formal presentation in the open house, trying to get an indication from the population as to which way they wanted to go.
Yeah,
And then they had, following that, they had a committee to study it. And as I understand it, coming out of the committee, some of the, and it wasn't just fire department, it was a select person and some people who were not on the fire department in the community. And while they didn't present a written report, which I objected to, they took a vote as to what, because at that time, I think it was over 8 million. And as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, the fire chief and one of the other committee members, primary, voted against it.
interesting.
And then because the fire department was looking for some direction from the selectmen on it, they started up the conversation again.
And what are the benefits of a new one such that it's worth 3 times the cost?
Again, the selectmen have not yet made a decision on that, and the only studies on it, in other words, with respect to the bridge, let's say, that went through a very extensive engineering study and expensive. They haven't yet done that.
I know, I'm just curious. But,
Well, let me see if I can answer that question. I think the last we've heard from the select board is that they would like to move forward with a new building. But they also, you know, I think took a little bit of stopping for a moment and say, oh, okay, and maybe it was because of the comments we made here, but that, okay, we can't just do a barrel roll here and just push it down the hill and see it's gonna, you know, work. They need to do all, they need to do all the work that's necessary.
That's a good example. The, you know, rolling down the hill.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, they're trying to, the selectmen don't even agree on what should be done.
Yeah,
And that's the challenge that they have.
Right.
There's disagreement on there, but, you know, one of the challenges with the location, if they tear that down and rebuild there, it's moving a lot of infrastructure prior to actually building, moving the electricity over, moving the fire hydrant over, and doing a lot of pre-work, which is why some of that's expense is built into that existing space because it's part of the current, and that was the 8 million.
Yeah.
This 5 million is actually taking a different space, either this parking lot over here or putting something on 16. The cost came down. The cost was much higher doing it there because of the move of the tanks and the septic and the
all the
electric and power
logistics,
line. There's a lot of pre-work.
And remember, if they put it over here, think of the town garage. The building that size,
Mhm.
right there.
And so those additional costs that you're mentioning, they're not part of the 1.5 per cube?
The 1.5 is the repair of the existing.
Yeah, it's putting an
So
extension on the
so
back.
there's repair, rebuild.
Yeah, painting it, putting an extension on the back.
Doing the roof,
Yep.
you know.
and then the question there is really, what is the right number? And I don't think they even know what the
Yeah,
right
they
number
agree that
is.
they are gonna go with.
How much- How much additional space do they need if they're gonna renovate?
If you look at the
The one.
garage today, you see the back half, you
Yep.
see this one part of the garage, it would go, well, it would square it off. It wouldn't look like an L today.
Yeah,
It
okay,
would be a squared off space.
I don't know, it just seems like a
Because
hurdle.
the new truck that they're gonna get in 2036 won't fit in this,
right,
The one they have coming will fit.
the new one that they're ordering. It barely fits in this,
Right, the one that's all ordered a year ago will fit,
barely, can't walk around.
right. But,
but I understood the standard fire trucks
I have that problem, in my
are
garage.
bigger than these doors, the
Yeah.
standard.
no,
ones. So
the standard,
going forward, any new
what
addition,
the future fire trucks is, come to believe what I've learned from, them, they're actually getting smaller.
Really?
Because they can't fit in
People's
Rural
driveways
village.
and stuff, they cannot fit. And not only that, but they're making them so that they're more, efficient, with more tanks on them for water tanks and everything else. That will take up a smaller amount of room than the big ones what we have right now.
Interesting.
Yeah,
And it's also the equipment area, I encourage you to go on the open house,
Yeah, oh, we will, for sure.
See
Another,
where they are.
to kind of mess up the.
It's okay.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Another option with the fire company, existing fire equipment, is that we have one relatively new truck. We got it, what, 3 or 4 years ago? We have another one coming in 5 months, within 5 months. It will fit in the building. In other words, it was when the fire chief ordered it, and I suggested that we buy it a year ahead of time because we had the money. He assured me at that time that it would fit in the building. Or I wouldn't have supported buying it a year ahead of time. So we have 2 new trucks. Essentially in a year. And then we have, what do they call that emergency truck that they go to accidents with?
The small one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But why do we need another truck besides that?
And how many fires a year do we have?
And thank God we had a wet year the real fire hazard year. We haven't had a structure fire in Jackson in 10 years. We do help other, mutual aid agreements.
Maybe we have to be part of their capital.
But do we want to spend 10 million to have a mutual aid? But anyway, the question that I think about is the safety of the men and having a space to handle their equipment
Sure.
safely. And if we had one new truck, the new one coming, and the other one, we don't eliminate one truck, now we have a whole bay to,
But the truck that's coming, I didn't know there's a truck coming next year. He had talked to me, there's a truck coming in 2036.
there's one coming.
no,
this
there's one
year.
coming now.
There's one coming now. It's been, because they,
Because in 2036, that's a replacement.
No.
No.
That's the one that we're still spending 80 grand a year putting aside.
Right. that's-
This truck that's coming is paid for,
Yes,
Right,
and,
I understand.
almost $1 million.
yeah.
Right, and the next truck will be.
And we have that new truck coming within months. We have the new truck that's only a couple of years old. And we have the emergency vehicle. And now we're gonna be putting another 80 grand a year for another $1 million truck. My point is, what changes with our fire protection if we have 2 new trucks, the emergency truck, and that's it? What changes
But
in
don't
our,
they have 3 engines right now?
what?
They have 3 engines right now
Yeah.
and the truck, so why did, I guess. That's an education process that needs to occur, why they.
Which
need
I think
3
we should go
Yeah.
to the thing on Tuesday and look for ourselves. But if they need space to have equipment change and safety area. And if we eliminated a truck, that creates a whole bay of space.
But if they said we need that because we respond to. We have.
Traffic accidents is the biggest thing, and that's what the emergency vehicle is.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting we get rid of that, I'm
No,
suggesting
no, I,
keep that.
there's some argument for having the 3rd vehicle, I don't know what it is. And if there is one, we should understand what it is.
Well, here's the way to look at it. If we have the vehicles we have, and we had another vehicle, let's say we spend 15 million on the fire department. Or we spend 1.5, what changes?
Yeah.
In our fire protection?
Yeah, good point.
What
Good point.
changes?
And the building's gonna have to be redone anyway, because somebody else is gonna be using it.
Yeah,
so
that's,
it's gonna
that's,
have to
the-
be-
that's the other thing.
That's the other thing.
That's money you're gonna,
Doing it
that's
anyway.
money you're
You're
gonna
gonna-
spend
You're gonna
anyway.
put 1.5 anyway.
Yes.
Well, it depends what you would use it for. Police trucks could fit in the base today. They don't even make more space. Those are pickup trucks. Those would fit in the base.
Right, and that's what the chief told me is that. In thinking about the long-term space for everything, this building doesn't have enough storage space as it is.
Mhm.
So they're talking about going out. What was it, 15 feet,
15 or 20 feet.
15 or 20 feet on that end. And to increase the office storage space and office space. And then Chief Burley said, well, if you're gonna do that, can we have a carport underneath it and just enclose it for our vehicles? And which makes perfect sense.
But if they go out 15 feet,
then if the new firehouse is built there, it's gonna come this way quite a bit. It's gonna eliminate ever adding onto this building.
that's what I was saying, if you're moving 15 feet, they have to move all of that equipment, the power pole and all of that, electrical, this way.
No, they don't, because, well, yes, if they build a new building there, but if they repair the existing building, it doesn't go this way anymore.
Right.
Jerry, what happens if they renovate this building? What happens to the equipment? Where is it stored?
The way that was one of the things I asked Jay initially, is what do you do with your equipment while that's going on?
Yeah.
He said there's a couple options, town garage for one. The Gray's Inn garage for another. The men would take some of their equipment home.
Oh, jeez,
So, there's their clothing and stuff.
yeah,
Their protective stuff. So Jay has thought all that out. And I very quickly summarized what he said, but he said it was doable, that he could do it. Am I mischaracterizing?
No, he wants to do something. He just wants a decision made.
yeah,
I think we need to do something.
Right,
I mean, there's no question around, is this something we can let ride for another 10 years? I don't think so,
I don't either.
so.
And I think the safety of the men
yeah.
is key.
I think
is
we're
a key
all
to
in
me.
that same place.
Yeah.
But by the way, disclosure, when they put up the last deal for the fire station, I supported it. And the reason I supported it is money was free at the time, and it made sense when money was free to use my free money. And money's not free anymore, so it's like, okay, we need to think a little bit more about it.
And if you think about how things, you heard what the bridge over there went from to, right?
Well, yes, yeah,
Doubled.
Yeah.
And so, because no one has really engineered any of these structures. When Jay originally talked to me about renovating this, he said, I think I can do it for 800,000. And I said, Jay, you're gonna have to, you can't ask for 8 and then spend 1.2. So if you think it's gonna be in that range, ask for 1.5. If you don't spend it, you don't spend it, but if you don't raise it.
And you need a 30%, I mean, Dick, you know this stuff, you need a contingency fund and the whole 9 yards if you're gonna be doing a construction project, and you don't spend it if you don't have to, but you have it if you need it.
And so if you look at this, what the fire department is spending, wants to spend. And then you take the $7 million number and put it in there. And
For
then-
my information, we are not gonna make the yay or nay on any of it, so we're putting out information.
No, we're gonna put it on.
We're putting out information, numbers or information.
Yeah, oh, we're,
So we're gonna put the numbers in. But we're not gonna say whether we approve of that or not. We're just putting out the information, which I agree with. I think we should, I don't agree with spending the money on all the issues that are in here. But I do think we should put out the information. But I don't think.
you know, we should make a recommendation.
I don't think we should spend a lot of time. You don't think, you think we should also add a recommendation?
Yes.
but there should be pros and cons.
That's our.
Well, we could also go back to, say, the fire department with questions that we have, and they might say, okay, well, maybe that should be something.
But
that-
again, I would be directing it to the selectmen.
Or the slide, either,
Yeah,
but they would need to talk to the fire department.
Well, or engineers.
Or-
but
We're
you're-
not here to say, I think we should do the remodel.
No, I don't think that that's true, but I also. I'm not sure I agree entirely with you about whether or not we make a recommendation. Because I think we're making a recommendation about how we move forward relative to how we're gonna afford. Our capital improvements over the next 10 years, and we're trying to, if I understand it correctly, a way to make sure that we even things out relative to the tax burden. So if I think to Jerry's point, if we have an $8 million item on the on here versus a $2 million item on here, that tips the scales relative to
Just how-
what you're willing to say, we can do or we can manage. And I guess the point there is that if we are trying to do the job that we're trying to do, that maybe the right answer there is to say that if we have a process that requires, we figure out, dang it, by the time we finish, we really do need to put a new fire station. Somebody come up. How do we manage that expense? Is that something we reserve for? Is that something we bond for? Do you bond for 8 million? Do you bond for 6 million? Do you bond for that plus this building renovations or the library or whatever else that's in this bucket list?
Well,
And-
highway departments with roads looking at.
Whatever the things are, just figuring out how that fits into
One of
a
the
fiscal.
selectmen said, and I know Tom
responsible.
said this,
So where does this information ultimately go? To the
Goes
select board?
It goes, I mean, the select board is the one who's gonna have to decide
Right,
how they work it and how they deal with it, and whether
Yeah.
or not they're gonna buy into it.
And
so what is the sentiment?
one of the selectmen said, I'm not gonna make a recommendation, I'm just gonna put it out there, let the voters decide. Well, what do you put out there, and what do the voters base their decision on?
Right.
What information?
So I agree with information, absolutely. And then the question we really have to have is, you know. it's-
But see, I think if we get to the end of it and say, okay. Here's what, every $10,000 worth of investment is gonna cost you per thousand. I don't think we have to say, oh, a $250,000 house, it'll be $800 more per year. I think we just say, yes, your taxes are gonna go up. How many dollars per thousand? So if we're at $11 a thousand this year, is it gonna go to $13 a thousand if you do 6 of the things?
Okay, so you're, doing just for each bucket, if you spend 10 million, it's gonna cost this, if you spend 2 million, it's gonna cost this.
Yeah, and I think that would be kind of like the best information we could put out at the end, once we, you know, get to plug our figures in.
Yeah.
But then let people know what these things cost by, I think the most graphic way is, what's it gonna cost you per thousand?
Yeah.
You know what your house is assessed at. You know, if it's a $700,000 house. You can plug those numbers in, if we give those numbers to the people. And it won't be, you know, say, okay, if we add up all of this. Your taxes will be, you know, somewhere around $50 per thousand. And, I don't think that'll fly at all,
And-
but I think if we do the parts. And then put that figure next to it,
That makes sense.
it'll be the best information.
Because right now, you're.
But shouldn't there be also,
Still doing 15.
in addition to the dollars, shouldn't there be also pros and cons? For the location, for, you know, like,
But I think
is
that's
it
where the
reasonable
town
going
is gonna
forward to
vote on.
continue
They're
to?
not gonna do that.
I
The town is gonna vote
Well, yeah, but the people who are voting need to have information to
Yeah.
vote, and the information has to be more than just dollars. I mean,
What do you get?
you could convince somebody easily to put a new fire department here next to the library. But realistically, emotionally, for what Jackson is, do you want something like that here? Not me.
Right, that
And if you're
is
talking
the
about-
discussion that will happen at the budget hearing. I would hope that this year will be you know, a massive turnout for the budget hearings. And then at the town meeting, I hope it's, you know, way more than 250 or 300 people.
Yeah.
We get everybody in there that's really interested in where the money is being spent.
Yeah,
And then we hash it out, because we don't make that decision,
yeah.
the town does.
I mean, to me, it just seems unreasonable to continue to have a fire department that can only get out of this town one way. It can't go through the covered bridge.
Well, we can't replace the cover.
No, of course not, of course not. But I think there needs to be discussion about whether the whole thing should be moved off-site.
Yeah, well, geographically, Jackson is a huge geographic
I
area.
know,
A lot of it's that way.
yeah,
So they don't have to go outside there, but I'm gonna give you a parallel to what this discussion. When the selectmen were talking about building a new town garage. The first time they gave it to the voters, they did it from the standpoint of, we can't decide what we want. Let's let the voters decide. They didn't even describe where it would be.
yeah,
Well, one thing that was put away, it was gonna be a big tent kind of thing. And,
but that's the way to anger a public,
and that's what happened. It got defeated resoundingly.
yeah,
Because they said, we don't know where it's gonna be, and we don't know what it's gonna look like, just give us 4 million. And it didn't fly. But that was the attitude then of the selectmen, like, we can't decide, let the voter decide.
yeah,
Well, based on what?
yeah, exactly.
And
That's the
so,
point I'm making.
and so the town garage got shot down. 3 years later, a new select group came in, they picked a location, they picked a design, they showed the design, it passed. Because they gave the voters the full information. And they made a recommendation. And I don't think it's appropriate just to say, well, here's column A, here's column B, here's column C, this is what it costs, voter decide, based on what?
Yeah,
Right, that's called an information sheet that gets sent out to all voters. There's been other issues that we've had where there were a lot of options that were considered by the planning board, select board, et cetera. And what we ended up saying is this information sheet, that this is one option, this is the pros and cons, this is another, and this is why we decided to go with the second option, the pros versus cons. And just a very logical information sheet, which was then distributed to all the PO boxes and everyone. And and it was very uncontentious town meeting because people had the information for it. It's not just, oh, show up to the meeting, go to the open house, whatever. Just write it down, nice, concise, one-page summary, and give it to everybody.
What I'm hearing then is it premature for the selectmen to put it on this year's town meeting until the information is gathered.
I think what the capital improvement plan we need to do is not to sit and argue about whether it should be a new facility or an upgrade, and just say, okay, these are the dollars if you do this option, these are the dollars for that option. Then let's move on and go through the items that we have a little better idea that, yes, they need to be on, this is high priority, this is medium priority. Get that all down and then decide how we're gonna get the money for it, whether it's capital reserve fund, over 5 years, $3,000 a year, or whatever. Or whether it's something like, okay, if we do the build a new facility, then that means we'll probably have to bond it. And this is how much the bond would cost per year. And they get all those numbers in and add it up for each year and shuffle things around so it's not a big bubble for 1 year. And
Well,
then
it's not maybe, it's for sure. If you build a new facility, it's gonna be bonded.
Right.
they get that information and
Yep.
say,
And-
and add those numbers in to that
I
column.
mean, there's no question about that, Sarah. They spend $7 million, it's gonna.
It has to be
bonded.
bonded,
Yeah, right.
right.
Yeah, problems we have to deal with is the fact that even like with the bridge steps went up in price. We don't know what the prices are gonna be. We really do not.
So you're telling somebody it's gonna cost $2 million and it winds up costing $8 million. Because we can't determine what the prices are gonna be. That's a big problem all across the country right now, not
Yeah.
just with, deciding this. We don't even know what our freight costs are gonna be to come into our store. Or what the product is gonna cost us. And that's been going on for since COVID started.
I think the big ticket items, I don't have, I agree with you 100%. The big ticket items, we have no sense at. But you have, look, what we've got here for other things, we've got things that,
But so I have one other reaction to that list. It's still my gavel, right?
yeah, no, you go ahead, you wanna go for it.
200,000 for 31 radios?
Isn't that,
That's $6,000 per radio. It's
That's-
two-thirds the
And again-
cost, it's two-thirds the cost of 3 towers. I mean, how does that make sense? I
That was a
can
number
buy a
that, I
professional
mean, we
two-way
can fine
radio.
tune the numbers, I can go back to him, but that was the number he gave you, but.
I mean,
Okay,
and, anyway, it just seems excessive for.
The best way, I agree. I can't agree with all of these things, but I think that we should put it down.
Mhm.
I think it's fair to say that and say, but I think there's also an alternative. But yeah, I think that's at town meeting or the budget. hearing.
Right, I guess I just think that during this process, if we see stuff that doesn't necessarily make sense, and maybe it's just because we don't have the information. We should go back to the fire department and say, really, does it need to be this high, kind of fine tune the numbers? And then it would be them that would do the prioritize, correct, not us, they're the ones that can tell us what they need.
if you put a brackets like guardrails, on what they spend, where do you want to spend it?
Okay, for me, the fire station and anything to do with school are all gonna be emotional issues.
Mhm.
And they're gonna have a lot of. For us, for me, for all folks that are here, we all agree that those are gonna hit us emotionally some way or another. Good, bad, or indifferent. And. I think to facilitate what we're trying to accomplish here. The best way might be to do as Sarah suggests, is we just simply say. There are 3 ABC options, we have no idea if the prices are close. But they're gonna be a bonding, Jerry tells us there's gonna be a bonding anyway, one way or the other. And
Which requires a 2/3 vote.
And we can put those in a separate category of understanding about what we're gonna do. Then there are the items that are like an air pack. That I don't know what the expenses for an air pack, God knows, and this could be a right number or not right number, but.
That's pretty accurate, they know.
But what I'm saying is that it's more likely that's gonna be something that we're gonna wanna either reserve for or. Put into a town budget on a particular year and say we're gonna pay for that this year as a budgeted item and put it in for a warrant article. One or the other, and so, I think we should maybe. It's not kind of unfair to have the fire station first. If we can put those aside, let's get the other ones in, ducks in the row, maybe on those and. Understand them a little bit and talk about those, get those square, and then we can. Figure out how we're gonna prop up our approach to the fire station, anything other that's big ticket. So we get something done tonight.
I mean, I just saw a lot of the other ones were more of a capital reserve. ones.
Well,
Just, but let me tell you, the radio tower is probably a dead subject.
Really,
Yeah, because Bartlett, Jackson doesn't need it.
Right.
Okay, we have got great radio reception and tower reception. The issue is Bartlett and Hart's location. And they do not want to invest any money in the project.
Right.
So at their last meeting that they had, it's pretty much, they had a radio tower meeting and pretty much,
kind of like the scales of the.
it's not gonna happen. We're not gonna pay the whole price.
You remember with the scales on the dump thing? We put aside, we raised a lot of money to put the scales. Bartlett never wanted to raise the money, so. Scales didn't happen. Same thing with Tower.
Is there a regional benefit to that, I mean, I understand there, for example, library, we were asked to be part of a bookmobile. Okay, and we won't use any of the services of the bookmobile, but the other towns that were involved will find use for it. And so they said, well, we're part of a consortium of 5 libraries or whatever, and they said, well, we should all sign up for it. We kind of said, we will not use that ever use that bookmobile, so we're out. Even though we're part of the group, it's like we would be paying in for something we never use. Now, whether or not that's being, neighborly or not, no, it certainly was the right decision financially. Because we were getting no benefit, and all we would be doing is putting into not just the expense of a vehicle, but hiring somebody to actually drive things, so it's gonna be an ongoing cost. And so I guess that's the same thing, if we're looking at anything here that's of a regional nature, we should be looking at it from a self-interest perspective. And then the other should be whether or not there's a safety issue that somehow we shouldn't be also being too narrow-minded or narrow-sighted in what we're looking at. If there's an overall benefit that we should be understanding.
Like the airport, for example.
Like the airport's a good example, or I don't know, the tower, it's good for what's going on in town, but does it affect whether or not we have information for a forest fire or a wildfire that's happening?
The issue is that Bartlett has low areas
Yeah,
and Hart's location has low areas, that the radio frequency doesn't get down. So
right, I understand. So if there's a fire in the Hart's location that's going to come this way, and they don't have radio coverage because, and it's at 40-mile-per-hour winds, and it's gonna hit us in two hours,
we would still get the radio.
we would still get the radio.
Yeah.
If you go in Hart's location, we can get it.
And remember, there's still cell phones. They're gonna be, that stuff's gonna go out
Right,
on social
Except
media like
except
crazy.
in Hart's location with no cell phones.
that's right, they don't have anything. But that's the issue, is that Hart's location and some locations in Bartlett don't get it.
Yeah.
We get all of it, because ours is up here, and that's,
I'm just thinking behind it, and the fact that,
I'm just telling you, this is what Peter Benson and Jay and Bart
Yeah.
told me from the last meeting, that
If you ever walk through, they have a big solar array that powers it. The towers, Jackson gets a signal really well.
you read ours very well.
all right, so we're moving right on, 1.3 new fire truck, 2036.
Right.
$1 million is as good as any number, I guess, if you're paying
That's what it's
800,000.
costing, they're anticipating the same cost, but that's 2036. So that would be the same thing. Luckily, we did this one. We already paid.
And our practice has been, Sarah, this is one of the ones that we've been constantly putting aside. in
80
reserve.
grand a year.
80 grand a year. So every 10 years, we're good. So what that means, though, is that we need to suggest if it's $1 million and it's a 10-year budget or whatever.
Mhm.
Or
And whatever the number is, we need to divide
if
properly.
we needed that other truck, but yes, that's true.
Whatever it is, we need to divide properly. Maybe it's a smaller machine that they'll buy, so it won't be.
So you set aside the 80,000 a year for a few years, and then as you get closer and you get a better idea how much it's gonna cost, then you adjust the number.
Now, I'm gonna make a comment on that. Prior to about 15 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, when a piece of equipment was going to be purchased, it was voted on by the town in the year it was going to be purchased. About, I don't know how many years ago, the RSA changed, and when we start the capital reserve fund, for the fire truck, for the police department, we authorize the selectmen to expend. So we don't get to vote on it anymore. In other words, we do it every year when we appropriate the 80 grand. But when they go to buy the vehicle, whatever it is. The truck for the town or the fire vehicle for the police or something for the fire departments, they just do it. Because they've got the money. Before, and I've argued about this since it came in. Let's appropriate half the money. So if 80 grand a year gets us the new truck when they're ready to do it. Let's put away 40. So that when it comes time to spend it. We get to vote on whether or not we really want to buy that piece of equipment. That's the way it used to be. Do you remember that, Scott? The town would vote on whether or not we would do it. And they would make a pitch. Whoever it is, the highway department, the police department, the fire, would make a pitch as to why they needed to spend that money at that time. You remember that's there, and they did that. They don't do that anymore.
What if you did 80% and then had it like a balloon deal where they can't get to the
Even
full
better.
amount?
Even better.
But where does the 20% come at the end?
Well-
They haven't been saving it the whole time.
See,
I can tell you where it comes from. It would come from the unreserved capital.
well,
fund.
or you can work it out, so you say, okay, in a warrant article for that year, you're going to put in the 200 for that year in order to make the rest of the purchase, and that you have to vote on.
What we did, David, when we bought the one that hasn't come yet, it's gonna be delivered in 3 to 6 months. We didn't have all the money for it, right? So I suggested that rather than, because we knew we were gonna buy it, why wait? Why not spend it? Well, we don't have the full amount in the capital reserve fund, in the fund for the fire truck. But we have 1.2 million in the undesignated fund balance. You all know what that is, right? I said, let's take some money out of the undesignated, fill in the shortfall. And buy the truck. That's what the selectmen did. We're fortunate in Jackson. You can say it's fortunate, that we raised to the tune of almost $80,000 a year by taxes than what we spent. And that's how our capital reserve fund grows by 40 to 50 to 60 grand a year. And the selectmen, typically the last 7 years or so, have taken out of the capital reserve fund to keep our tax rate at below $1. We did.
Right?
I mean,
And every year you sit with DRA and say, well, how much are we gonna take? And apply it, and, because you have to do it through them. To hold on to our tax rate.
so the 20% balloon that you talked about doesn't have to be raised, we've got it.
Well, I would say,
But they would
but
have-
you have to vote, that's,
Exactly.
you're
Right.
trying to come up with a mechanism, listening to you.
It gives the power back to the people.
Mm.
In other words, to me, that's much more transparent. If the fire department, the police department, the highway department said, you know, our plow truck, we're spending 15 grand a year on maintaining it, it's time to replace it.
Mm.
We've got X amount of dollars in the capital reserve. fund.
And if you have to do that every year, and you know you're gonna have to do that every year, and say it's a couple 100,000 or whatever that you have to do warrant articles for. That's not gonna do this
Right.
to the tax rate, it's going to be a fairly even thing, but it forces it both. I don't know, it's something to think about, yeah.
And the selectmen have come very close to doing that. Is that, you know, I've been talking about that. That last year they came real close to doing it. The fire department then raised their hackles and said, we don't like that. We want to make sure we have all the money when we go to fire truck. We don't want to have to go to the voter and get it.
Right, we don't wanna ask permission. We just wanna.
And so the selectmen backed off.
And the vote isn't necessarily triggered by the money, right? You know, say they were getting less than they thought they needed, but then it turned out.
No, no, no.
Comply with it.
Once
with-
you appoint the selectmen as the agents to expend, it's done. They decide when they buy it, not the voter.
So if,
The voter does it ostensibly by every year approving that.
right, no, I'm
80 grand.
just saying, if we try to set it up with a balloon or some missing amount.
Yeah, like
that's going-
20% less.
That's gonna force a vote, if at that point, the fire department says, well, wait a minute, we can get this other vehicle for 200,000 less, that's gonna do just the same job, so we're just gonna buy that. And they don't need. a
Wouldn't that be
vote
interesting? Which,
Wow.
which,
What a novel idea.
which, to what you were just suggesting, when I discussed removing a vehicle, you know, have 2 fire trucks in this, and the emergency truck, instead of 3 fire trucks. The comment got, oh, don't push that, we'll do okay with what we got. It was like, don't rattle the cage.
You don't have the money, you find a way.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna scratch the radio tower.
Mhm.
New fire truck is in, new forestry truck is something that every 5 years
Mhm.
they need.
No, in the next 5 years. It's old. They want to replace it in the next, not every 5 years.
Okay,
Within the
Where's
next
the
5 years.
house at?
That's in the back in that little garage thing.
That one they're extending?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's what that was.
They need a new one, I mean.
If you know, the building behind or near where they park the school buses, you notice they're reframing that.
okay, so 100 to 300, I mean,
I'll get a better itemized down.
it would be a little bit more specific than.
I will.
I mean, I'm good with 100 to 130 or something like that, or 150, maybe, but.
David, describe how that vehicle was used.
Well, that was my next question.
It's more of an off-road. It's the off-road vehicle, I think, for all the fires we have in the forest. I think.
And so is this one with better capacity, or are we replacing something?
No, it'll
old
go,
that's never
it'll go,
used?
it's an all-wheel drive army type vehicle,
Yeah.
it'll go on the fire, on the, logging roads.
My Toyota goes
Actually,
on-
that's actually housed in Brazen.
Yeah, my Toyota goes on now.
But if you look, like, for example, look at Canada,
Although it did cut, yeah.
they're gonna need aircraft and helicopters and everything else, they're not gonna need.
All right.
Off-road vehicles.
I mean,
Maybe there
this
ought to
is-
be a helicopter.
But that's a whole different discussion. I mean, you're raising good points in the sense that. Do we need the equipment that we're looking to buy anyway? And where does that discussion come from?
Right, but again, the forestry truck is the one that's being bought in 5 years, a better truck.
It's a replacement of the old.
Right.
Have you ever seen it?
And
It's
then
like
add-
World War II.
Ask how often they've used it.
Well, that's why I'm
That's what I'm
asking,
saying.
how could it wear out if it's never used?
It's just extremely old. That's-
Right,
But that's the point is
But
that.
That means it's well made.
right, old doesn't mean, oh, you know.
Well, I don't know, we get replaced every so many years. right?
Yeah, well, again, my Toyota's holding up a lot better than I am.
But those questions that you're asking are extremely valid questions to me.
All right, so is it in or?
I will get some more detail and bring it back next week.
I would hate to ask, but, do we need to actually have, like, the department come in and talk to us about each of these things? Or do we need to have them provide us with a write-up on each of the various vehicles and how they're used, how often they're used, when they've been used, if they've been used?
To Dick's point, we're not the ones who spend the money, the selectmen are. Maybe we could recommend that the selectmen get that reported.
And make a
Okay,
determination if any of these things need to be.
Exactly.
And then
purchased.
if we. Okay. Get that report to the selectmen. They're elected. They can hash it out, what direction do they wanna go? And present it, and it still goes to the town for the vote.
Yep.
And it really comes down to how well they present that. option.
Yeah, because in reality, we're presenting this to them. They'll take this document and say, Jay. Why do you need this? I mean, that's the way
well,
I
you
see
you
it.
would hope that, so I guess, again, back up to what is our job?
Right.
Do we just need to include it and say, here's the number?
If it goes through, this is what it will cost.
All right, so.
We're not saying it should go through, we're just saying it's an idea, it's come up. Here's what it'll cost. if it goes.
All right, so let's get a better number and
Mhm.
keep it in.
Yeah,
Pickup truck,
2018. The 2028, 4 years, to replace the current one we have today. Because of mileage and that's the one that Jake drives.
yeah.
And that's a pretty reasonable price because my truck's about that.
I was gonna
And it
say,
doesn't have all the bells and whistles.
that number is too low.
Yeah, 28, it's gonna be 100.
What happens with those vehicles is that they make, make it available for bid, people can bid online.
Mhm.
And then they use it for another 8 years.
All right, air packs. Okay, I mean,
And then
Probably-
handheld
probably the
radios are
number,
more
just
information on those.
keep it in, handheld, truck radio, again, you should ask for,
An itemized list.
yeah, give us a. You know, you're gonna buy them tomorrow, show us the invoice.
Yeah, last time we bought them was 2000.
Yeah. And that could be the price, I mean,
There was a federal grant then, is that a possibility this time around?
No, that was part of the,
I mean, I'd spend 6,000 if I had a federal grant.
it was part of the 9/11 first responders money.
toilet seats cost $200, we buy them from federal budget. But
Come
yeah.
on, an iPhone costs $800.
6,000.
Saying,
I can get a two-way professional radio for $400 and a half one.
Yeah, satellite radios cost about $3,000.
Yeah, these are the communications that they use at the fires. It's not, it's the communication that they wear on their headsets.
All right,
That's interlinked, like,
Yeah.
when they're actively working on fire, that's how they talk.
are any of these, are all of these currently listed in our,
The fire truck is, you got a new one.
are there any that are currently being funded that are not listed here? I guess it's in the town.
Got the list that was on the town report as to what's. It's a variable capital improvement list. And it has. The only thing it has numbers for. Pickup truck. Replaced in 2040 for approximately 48,000. 210 pickup traded in 2019. They have that for 150,000 under 2029. And that's about all they've got.
So that one's on, 1.5 is on within the budget already. That's what she's talking about, the pickup truck for 2029.
Yeah,
Is that the same one or different?
No, it'd be the same one.
well, anyway, they have. The way this is set up is not how much is being set aside. I went through my old notes from previous capital improvements plans, just very briefly this afternoon, trying to figure out what I had. And at one point I had gone through it must have been the town report saying how much we had spent on capital items for each of the previous 5 to 10 years. And that would be an easy enough exercise to do. It takes time, but just to find out how much we spent that year and what percentage of the total tax bill that was. And trying to figure that out too. And that was so that as we, excuse me, as we plan going forward, and try to keep it even, how much we're spending on capital expenses total
Mhm.
would be keep it the 11% or whatever it comes out. So I can do that if that would be helpful for the last whatever years. And this was back in 2004 to 2005, the first capital improvement.
So you're gonna compare that to what? To the plan from 2009?
No,
no,
what I'll do is
it's-
just every year,
What
figure
we
out,
spent toward, okay. percent.
and just going back 5, 8 years to see what it's been up through this last year, and then.
It's been 300,000, that's X%
Oh,
of.
the tax.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you could just look at the town reports, and that information.
Well, yeah,
there.
Exactly, that's where I get
Yeah.
it. But you have to go through
But
it.
somebody's gotta do the work. You wanna do it, she's offering to do it.
I do it all the time.
Okay.
Oh,
you
well,
guys-
speaking of that, by the way, I don't know if everybody knows it, but Julie Atwell is leaving.
No, no,
I didn't know that was supposed to go out, just.
Yes, it is, dear. It is.
No, I don't know if that was public.
I mean, she's
No,
she's
that-
definitely leaving.
Jerry, but that was not supposed to go out to the public right now.
oh,
That was in a non-public.
So you haven't heard a damn thing, okay?
I know nothing.
That's absurd.
No, it is not.
Is she leaving?
Jerry, that's not the point.
that's not the point that.
I guess my point is that the budget meetings maybe,
A little bit scrambly this year,
who knows?
yeah. Maybe better. huh?
But I think what Sarah's talking about, what we're talking about here, what Dick's talking about. If all this gets discussed at town meeting, we're gonna be there all night. As opposed to what people should be going to is a budget hearing.
Right,
Yes,
And I think that maybe we as a board should be recommending that loudly.
yeah, especially if the moderator does what he did last time, that, you know, the new moderator we have, he just basically said they're all together and we're all voting on this all at once, and it was, well, he didn't even say that, so,
I screwed up till the same, so.
I don't know, that guy really messed things up, so there's no comment about it. We made it for a quick meeting. So thank you.
But by the way, any bonded issue has to be the first matter brought up at the town meeting. And it probably would be by secret ballot, no, it would be yes, no.
Yeah.
And while that yes, no process is happening, we can still go on with the rest of the meeting while we're voting as, I mean, that's something I guess we should discuss
Mm.
if it's appropriate to do that. I mean, we legally can continue the meeting while the yes, no vote is going on, just how does that work?
No.
And I guess I'd like to say a little on that.
All right, so Sarah, that's great. You're gonna do some work for that. That'll be good. Let's move, how we doing? We still got time.
highway department, police doesn't have much, I just got hold of the chief.
Well, the police department, we have expanded area and we got police department and also the town requirements,
Right.
which I don't, town-owned building. I don't see where we have on the list the increase for like office space or something like that.
That wasn't in the minute, so that's something I'm just saying tonight,
Oh, okay, so,
so I'll put that on.
all right, so, but we have basically a need for the town offices to expand. And that's to accommodate office space, if I'm understanding it correctly.
Correct, and storage, okay, because everything is stored downstairs to begin with, and they don't have enough storage.
And is the storage, what kinds is, I mean, are you keeping like old bottles or stuff, or is this like, what kind of storage?
Town
is-
records.
Town records.
All right, and have we ever tried to consider changing them over, or are we required to have them in hard copy?
Well, you'd be surprised how many people want to come in, want old records. And, I mean, they want to see paper.
What he's talking about is doing it digitally.
Yeah, I know that, I
And
know that.
it,
I
Yeah,
mean,
but every
everything is-
time I look
everything
at
is on
digital, every time I look at that paper copy, it's really hard to look at and it's, sometimes it's musty and other things.
There's no downside to digital.
I mean, I come,
Everything is on digital, by the way, and, but they still have old records and stuff like that, and somebody will come and, I mean,
but it's not,
if it's not right here, you know, in
Yeah.
files, there's millions of file cabinets.
but are we required by law to maintain it, the hard copy once it's been digitized?
I don't know that, whether we're required to do that or not. But what I was getting at, it's damp down there. They just had a water issue down there just recently. I mean, like 2 days ago. And, Julie had to go and get a dehumidifier put down there because of the perimeter down there was leaking. And they certainly do not have enough room out this way, the way it is now. First of all, there's no place for girls to eat, for one thing. There's a little tiny nothing kitchen and, some of the other departments have, you know, huge kitchens and things like that.
And your office gets used for all kinds of other meetings,
Exactly,
so she gets pushed
All
out.
right, so basically,
but they're not asking for a lot.
yeah, no, I'm not asking, I'm just asking if there's. Not that. You need, the question is, do you need 5,000 square feet or do you need 2,000 square feet? I guess that's the point. If there are things that we can do to mitigate storage requirements that would help in some way. I come from an industry that's paper centric. 5 billion pages of hard copy, you cannot keep in hard copy. And you have to digitize. I mean, I generated roughly 1 million to 2 million pages every year. Personally,
Mhm.
and,
It's a lot of trees,
pardon?
it's a lot of trees.
It's a lot of trees. And so we digitized, so our processes were digitized to the extent we could do that. State regulations required some hard copy for some of it.
Well, you're talking also about huge pieces of paper, you know, somebody, you know, I mean, they.
Plats,
I understand, but
Like
right
that.
now, for example, we see a plat, we can see a plat digitally, we have it, everybody got a copy of whatever's going on next, meeting.
But they weren't, the girls weren't complaining about anything. They need new carpeting, it's the windows that need to be
Not,
fixed.
I'm
in
not
there.
looking for complaints, I'm
And
looking
they
for
just wanted to
ways we can.
rules out there. Now Jerry would help me design going out in that direction, how the building would be. And the police are really happy about it because
If you had another thing the size of this going out. Would that meet your requirement?
This side.
I think it was about 20 feet.
yes,
There's,
I guess I'm just trying
Yeah,
to, I'm just trying to ask, what do you need?
what, 20 by? It's.
To me, there's two
900 square
options.
feet.
Without thinking hard, if we had a space this large additionally on this building, would that meet the requirement?
Yes,
Well, it also would help the police department because
that's what.
they're right under.
they would have the under.
Okay,
But what
and
I'm
would
saying,
that be enough? I guess would that,
But David has a point that if they build the new firehouse there, it's gonna come, if you know where
Right.
the propane tank is, it's gonna come that far,
you can't do both.
which would eliminate anything on this end of the building.
unless you have one less bay.
But what I'm saying is that if we do, say we move to remodeling the current firehouse and that stays the footprint, that stays where it is, and we went to this side. Would it be easier to build this room on the other side
Well, they
and
just,
then convert this into offices since you know what I mean? I was just like, what is gonna go on that other side?
well,
Yeah.
they did discuss that with me and,
It bifurcated the office.
yeah, you won't believe how many people are in that office on a daily basis. I mean.
I would believe it. I get there myself.
They're-
So you're just saying expanding the current offices and just moving them out?
Correct.
Yeah, just table roof one, you just go 20 feet.
I'm agreeing with you that we need the space. I just wanna know if it's gotta be 18 or 40.
Yeah, if you're going 20 feet out and what would you think this is?
The same roof line.
No, I'm saying, so it's by 20 by
Yeah, whatever.
40, 60 feet.
They weren't asking for a lot, you know, I mean, it was not.
That's not the point.
That's not the point.
Yeah,
No,
so
and
what-
The 800 square feet up and.
whatever you gain downstairs, yeah.
Yeah, and they were trying to accommodate the police too, because they're up here all the time.
There
as
was
well.
it stopped both.
Everybody's.
Exactly.
Of course they do.
All right, so we need to put here for town offices, not police department, but town offices expansion. And town offices for the offices and for the police. Municipal building expansion, and we need to put a number down. Was it $500,000? Is it $1 million? What is it?
They haven't even really looked
You
into
know,
it.
that's a crapshoot until we get it engineered.
$800,000
$250 a square foot.
times 800 square feet.
So you're gonna say. 1,500, 1,600 square feet, if you count the.
Yeah.
Police center.
$800,000.
That's $29.95.
So, okay. But they're not, you're gonna expand both floors?
Yeah.
I think they're gonna do it.
When you blow the top part out, you get the under.
You gotta build it on some.
Oh, I know that. but
And
I
it's
thought
gotta be,
a
and it's gotta be
not a-
pretty too.
But it would be a
It's gotta be pretty.
carport, that makes.
It has to be pretty.
Gets that
Oh,
one.
No, I'm saying if it's a carport.
It
then-
actually,
It has- It would look,
it didn't take away from the look of the building.
No, it has
It's
to.
really just increasing the. I mean,
Yeah, we make
it's
it
not
nice.
architectural genius, it was just.
I know.
Put 20 feet.
No, my point
And
was,
when I talked to Chief Pearlie, I said, good, we'll gain the space underneath, because you have to build the concrete footing.
right, but I'm saying if it's a carport, then you don't, it's not the $250 square foot for the bus. first
But he was
floor.
gonna gain some office space.
So you wanna add a little bit more office space.
He did, yeah,
Okay.
he was happy with what it was. But yeah, well, how much is that cost? $750,
Yeah,
about $750.
all right, let's put a number. Let's toss a number out. 750.
I think it's important for them.
And
No,
we'll.
it's not a good number. We'll get a better number,
Putting-
but we need to put something here that there's something that needs to get done. And so when we're taking a look at the whole set, somebody doesn't go racing by it and say, they didn't say anything about that, they didn't give us a number for that,
So how much total square footage addition?
I'd have to go back and
Well,
look
approximately.
at my drawings and see exactly what the square footage was, but it's easy to figure, I just don't have it with me.
20 by 40.
It
So 800,
was under 1,000 square feet.
so that's 170,000.
Like 20.
250 times 800. Okay. So where's the 750?
I put 750. But I mean, I could figure it better.
But if you expand it down below, it's a little bit more than.
Well, that's what I was, what's the total?
It's gonna be,
square
it's gonna
footage?
be 1,600 square feet by the time you're done.
Yeah, 1,600 square feet.
400,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Then put that in real dollars and
Yeah, well, would you say, Kevin, in 5 years? And then work?
all right, number may not be a good number, we'll toss a number out
Yeah,
there.
so we'll put something down.
And we can, somebody can mess with a number.
When could we do?
Yeah.
I don't think I-
Yeah,
Highway department,
the highway department, if
And it's
you,
frozen water
if
table.
you look at the weather phenomenon that happened across the country, we lost how many feet was it, about 30 feet of the switchback road that lost?
Yeah,
The switchback road had a gate, the whole road went down. And they had to put in what's called slurry, it's cement. And water, no stone, and then they had to put a huge culvert in. And that's one of the things that the highway department has been charged by the selectmen, to go around and evaluate every culvert in town. And if it's, and check to see if it's capable to handle X increase in flow. Because we don't know if we're gonna get what they got. in
How many
California.
town dirt roads do we have? How many town roads are dirt?
There-
Is that,
Chesley Farm,
Yeah.
Dundee,
Dundee,
it's not a lot of steep on
Crossroads.
Dundee, it's dirt though. I mean, you sort of know that we don't normally get a lot of rain in this part of the country because you see a lot of deep, steep dirt driveways. And when it rains like it has been, it's become
on,
torn apart.
on Christmas Farm Lane, for example, we lost the whole. Like you see what's at the end of Tin Mine? That's what happened in two places, on Christmas Farm Lane.
Well,
We couldn't get our cars out.
The last thing I'd like to see is Chesley Farm Road become paved, but out of the town,
But we don't know what we're gonna get.
well, it's gonna get worse.
all right, so, but the highway department, Jared, we've got a roof, and so that's a good number you've got there, right?
Mhm.
But we don't have anything right now for, road repair.
right, I wrote that down.
Yeah.
We should add that in. Again, they're gonna vote on, it, but we should put it there. So the information is at least out there in the world being talked about.
A number that was talked about 5 years ago was 100,000 a year going into road repairs. It got whittled down over that 5 years to what, 40,000? And last year, I said, not enough, guys, and what they go to 95,000 back. Now, that's what I think we should recommend that they go back to, is 100 grand a year in road repair and replacing it. Because just repairing the roads sometimes isn't enough. Sometimes they gotta rebuild.
I just saw the machine. I can't remember, oh, I went down to the phone. And the machine is eating the pavement of the existing road. And right behind, okay, they're laying it down as
Yep.
bedding.
Yep.
And then right behind, the trucks are coming with new asphalt, and it's a beautiful road,
It's called,
but it's expensive,
it's called a reclaimer.
yeah.
Mm.
And
My
they've
grandson,
got the machine.
grandson comes,
It's not, they don't have to create the technology.
All right,
it's
so
huge maintenance on that thing.
again, if we're gonna toss a number out there, should we have a reason for the number or a basis for the number?
The
or-
basis, to me, if you're gonna use the 100 again, is that's what Jay and a couple other people worked out that would take care of the roads.
Yeah, so is that gonna replace 50 feet of road every year or what?
No, we were talking about a mile of road per year, and I think we're dealing with about 13 miles of roads.
Okay, so, and how often do we need to I guess that it would be useful. There's gotta be some arithmetic somewhere about how often you need to replace the surface.
Well, that, like Dick just said, 5 miles a year.
Well,
And
it's almost like, urethane the bright work on a boat. It just goes round and round.
no,
In 2009, in 2009, it was allocated funding for temporary, for rebuilding, perhaps allocating $160,000 per year for approximately 1 mile of year of road reconstruction.
At that date, that's the
That's
cost.
2009.
Costs. Probably going up 40% since then.
Oh, everything else.
Yeah.
so the right answer, if we're using the same arithmetic, is like 200 grand. Not 100 or 160. If that's what it costs then.
Well, even if we got it started at 150 now. Without,
All right, sold 150, we'll put that in there.
Using the same formula that per mile type system.
And I think that, again, we can recommend, but it's the selectmen. And where the road will lead through road again.
And if we could, if somewhere to the highway department, someone could give us a better number, that would be useful.
And just to throw in. You know, what everybody sees is the bottom of Tin Mine there. They have no hope of getting that hot top. Because they close in what, October?
Okay.
And there, if you don't need to go, you don't need to go far to see that the hot top guys are. Night and day. All day long. All night.
Yeah, they're straight out. All right,
So that's the only thing for the highway.
okay, Jackson Grammar School, gosh. And by the way, grammar is not spelled like grandma, grammar, grams.
Yeah.
That's with an AR, please.
That's right.
Again, that's, it's getting close to time, but they don't even want to. Their hands are so full with other issues right now, they don't even want to present any kind of thing.
Yeah, but over the next 10 years, so they're gonna want something.
Probably, but right now they're not
They,
willing to.
they
do
won't, they
anything.
won't, they won't even answer that.
No. I'm sorry about that, but that's,
You just need to go to a meeting to see what the issues they're facing.
yeah,
Have nothing to do with nothing. It's just,
So, but the last time they presented something was what, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million?
2.5.
Okay, so somewhere along the line, once they get their act together, maybe they might be coming back for another $2.5 million?
I'd say,
Or 2.1 or 2.2 or 3.4?
you can put it in,
the townspeople looking at it.
yeah, it's gonna do more harm than good on this.
Exactly.
Well,
They're
again,
just grateful that they had the money to replace this, you know, the equipment outside,
The playground.
the playground.
At 75 grand, they've actually got it in there now.
Uh-huh.
But,
but it's,
yeah, I think we could say that without putting a number on it, that the school is gonna need more storage area and more classroom space.
That's what I think we should do, that's
Right.
information.
Yeah,
We should say, this is going to come up in the next 10.
well, that's what I'm trying to say, and say there is gonna be a call for it, and we can do something to the effect of saying. The last time it was considered was a $2.5 million ask. And without anything more than that, because
Okay,
we don't do the school budget. I mean, this is the town budget, but I'm so used to living in Connecticut, I'm sorry. In Connecticut, what you have is you have a board of finance. And you have the school budget and you have the town budget, and the board of finance is out there. And it slaps them up the side of the head with a 2x4 if between the two of them, it doesn't add up. And they go back and say, you need to reduce your number by this, and you need to reduce your number by that, and then
kind
becomes.
of like the budget committee does.
Pardon?
The Conway Budget Committee does that.
Yeah,
They handle both the school and the town,
okay, so here we don't have anything like that, everything's
but now it's us.
separate, and it's like,
But yes, that's fair to say that within 10 years, the school's going to needs have some space issues.
right, and last ask was for this amount, even though it was turned down.
Manage to get new families in the town, sure.
And,
Don't have to
well,
do with the school population.
Yeah.
yeah, and if we become, more like a Telluride where there are 3 kids go to school, then we won't need that.
There's 40 this year.
Pardon?
And if they pass vouchers in this state, we're not gonna have any kids in school.
That's one of the issues that they're dealing with is where do they have to sign a contract with a Kennett or a Freiburg or a Gorham with where they're going to send the kids to school. And the battle going on right now is there's a whole group of parents that says, we should be able to send our kids where we want to.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine, but they want the school to pay for it.
Yeah. But that's what private schools were all about.
Right.
You
Now-
want your kids to,
But you could,
Tuition,
you
If,
could, you could,
if they sign a contract with Kenneth, even if we don't send a single person,
You gotta pay.
we gotta pay.
but
And
they
even
could-
even if we're paying at the same time to go to Freiburg or, Gould or wherever. Or homeschool.
Well, one thing that would help is for the parents that want to go elsewhere is to at least allow kids to go back and forth between here and Bartlett. If not Conway as well.
Oh, yeah, there's no issue with Bartlett, that's not.
No, well, there is, because you have to pay $15,000 or something to tuition your kids at Bartlett, and there's no reason for that. The two schools could pass kids back and forth up to a certain number and not cost either school anymore. And there are kids who would prefer a Bartlett education because there's more kids, or kids who parents would prefer a Jackson education because it's a smaller school. So I think you'd have kids going both ways. And-
You mean pre-sixth grade?
no, I'm saying just like in Conway, where you can go to 3 different schools. Or 2 schools, depending, wherever you live in
Yeah.
Conway, you can go whichever grammar school you want to go to.
Talk about Pine Tree, Fuller,
Right.
Yeah.
So why don't we do that with Bartlett?
why don't they do it, Carl?
Why don't we, Jackson and Bartlett, allow kids to go to whichever the 2 schools they want to go?
Oh, you mean Conway or Bartlett?
No, Jackson and Bartlett. Why, if I live in
Just-
Jackson, can I?
He's talking up to K6.
You mean seventh and eighth grade is what you're talking about?
No, K6.
Okay,
oh,
so-
right from little kids.
Yeah, we're talking about the Jackson Grammar School, where the Jackson Grammar School has a decline to population.
It's not.
Well, it isn't in the past year or so.
No, I went back 40 years. It hasn't varied 30 kids in 40 years.
Yeah, I looked at a trend and it was clearly down over the past 15 years.
And you're saying it's trending down?
It was when I looked at it a couple years
It's
ago.
not now.
Oh, but
There's 40 kids.
It's a small population, so it's always gonna bounce up and down a lot, but
Yeah, but percentage wise, it's been way over 20%, 25%, 6 kids.
And,
Well, in any case, if you gave the parents that wanna send their kids elsewhere another option of going to Bartlett, yeah, I think that would.
see it the other way around, they're, like, for example, the school board has a benefit, that if you work for the school board, you can, and you live out of town, you can have your child's tuition to Jackson for X amount of dollars, as long as it doesn't increase the student population, so as to increase the cost of the school.
Right, and you could set caps if you're going, well, restrained from.
In fact,
so, but-
the town of Jackson, this part of the thing, is thinking about making it a benefit to the same thing. They pay the tuition for them, to help get them employees. But to say that the Jackson School Board, the Jackson K through 6 is declining or should be thought about as going to Bartlett, to me that's the center of the town today.
That's the way.
That's the center of the town. That's
No, I'm not saying send our kids to Bartlett, I'm saying let kids that wanna go to Bartlett from Jackson go there, let kids from Bartlett that wanna go to Jackson go here. The same way they do in the Conways. And,
That would be.
Oh, no, they don't go into college. You can't choose what school you go to. It's by where you live.
no, you can choose to go to John Fuller or Pine Tree or,
No, you
No,
can't.
you can't.
you can, I'm pretty sure you
No.
can.
No, I'm pretty sure you can't.
If you live in Conway, you can go to any, stay the Conway Grammar Schools. Well, it's the way it used to be, if they changed it.
Not that way at all.
All right, we aren't gonna get traction on. No. All right, library. Okay, so library, now they weren't ready to give us numbers, they're doing a strategic plan. As we speak, they're working on doing that with the, trying to get some outside assistance on that, making things happen, but. Shelving system is an item that is probably the most pressing. In terms of being able to change up how they display the collection. It's a fixed shelving system right now, and most libraries of its size use one that allows for the shelving to be manipulated to move, and they would like to replace the shelving system from a fixed to a moving system, so it enables them to better display.
Flexibility.
They haven't given me a price. I don't know what the price is, but I'm expecting that it's probably gonna be $50,000 to $70,000.
For the shelving or for,
For the shelving system and. Children's space, you know, again, this gets to the point of, do we have kids in town or not having kids in town? The current space was built out with a much smaller collection of books than what we have currently. And there's been a lot of ask for more children's space. By people have children. And so it's like, okay, what do we do with that? And that's still in their strategic review. Does it make sense for the number of patrons we have, their kids, to expand the area or the display area more than what it is right now? I have no idea.
It's really nice to see the kids marching on a line in the morning, go to the library.
And at the last school board meeting, the new principal is going to continue that. They did at one time have a teaching aide that was certified by the state, I guess, or who was certified, but they had that at one time. So it was actually a teaching environment there.
Yep.
Because they don't have that person any longer. It's more of a reading and not a teaching. And, but they still want to continue it because they feel that the kids get a big benefit of being in that library.
And there's issues, the school obviously doesn't have the, as much facility at the grammar school for a library as what they would like to have. And so then the question is, do you end up doing more here in order to accommodate that? You know, the answer, and neither do the, you know, they have. They're just trying to strategize with that, but with a new librarian who actually has some experience with that, which is useful.
So it's fluid.
Pardon?
It's fluid.
Yes, but the idea of the potential for a need for additional space in the library was there, meeting space. Right now, when we have this space available in town, but often the library is being used as a meeting space. And the meetings are being done, I mean, the one room they have was originally the librarian's office up on the second floor, which has just barely got 6 folding chairs that can fit in there. It's really cramped, but again, I don't know if the library is the right place for a meeting space. Or if whether or not we should be doing a better job with the old library building, using that for meeting space, I don't know. But again, it's on their agenda for looking at, because again, they've had requests for meeting space at the library as part of a community center. And libraries aren't just places to get a book, it is a community center of a type. That's different from a community center next to the school.
Is this so they can have meetings during the day
Yeah,
while the library is active?
yeah. Somebody.
Is the building? I mean, I'm just thinking expanding the building itself is that what we're talking about? Is actually literally kind of adding to the back or adding on?
Yeah, well, the other piece is storage.
Yeah.
And so it would be useful to have the storage on site. Right now,
Yep.
there's no way to do that. So yeah, the intention there would be likely to have a 2-story bottom storage, upper meeting space for attention.
I'm just trying to physically look at where that would study. Like, nice, just add it. to
Just
the back.
a quick thought, a wing off of the back.
Yeah.
where it's on either side.
Mhm.
Of course, one side,
It's gonna be a fire.
There's gonna be a fire station.
there's gonna be a fire station there, and well, the other issue there is a septic system there, and there's also a requirement that they reserve a separate septic area as well, so.
I heard there's a pool back there.
Yeah, no, that should, you know. So anyway, that will, I think that will come up, in the next 10 years. And there, we may not be able to get numbers on that. But I think we should identify them here in the capital improvement plan.
I think we did well. After years, I looked at the minutes and there was nothing really allocated funds.
No, I mean, are we on the line? Are we done with the, are we skipping?
Let's skip, yeah, because Jim's not here.
Nothing for the ambulance, she runs.
Yeah.
They don't get any money.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem is that, you know, sort of asking for money with no particular plan in place. You know? And, you know, the benefit of just getting some money is that you can react to whatever opportunity comes your way, but and I think to get real money, you really need to put forth a real plan and not sure that's there yet. Then we have Mike Mallett potentially going into affordable housing for his staff. And that's still a start, and it still helps Jackson. Joe and I talked to Matt, Mike, Steve, you know, is there anything we can do to help, either as a private citizen or planning board? Waiting for Mike to get back to us, you know, on that. You know, I don't know if there's, you know, part of that development, what limits that development, is the road that they would have to put in, you know, is there a possibility of the town to take that road and help support the construction of that road?
It's like, we were talking earlier about Conway, and they missed the opportunity of buying this condo property, is there? Would we ever consider funding the town buying property?
Well, I mean, I personally think so. I mean, I think that would be great. It's just, you know, can we say, let's put $100,000 into, you know, some sort of fund. And then at some point use that money to buy a piece of property, get something built on it. You know, can that be done, or do we need to have a more detailed plan in place to get the support from the town?
Yeah, if you set up some sort of trust, you could also then get money, not necessarily tax money.
You get
but
grants.
get grants and you get
donations.
And, but to do that, you have to have a plan.
Mhm. Well, one of the things that. The reason I think we got the capital improvement program process approved this year was because of the facilities committee. That we did, and. Facilities committee. And that meandered in terms of what it was trying to do and not do. But one of the things it did do, and I think in space did one and wonderfully well with your. Requests for information from everyone. We got a really super response. Number one. Response to the survey was affordable housing. That we needed more affordable housing in town. That was the number one. I mean, what by like 6 times more than any other thing that was listed by people, what we ought to be concentrating on in terms of how we focus our energies on what we do in town. And the only way affordable housing works is, I think you said it, you know, you have to have a facility for it. It just, it doesn't happen willy-nilly. We might have score of something with Mike Mallett, which would be kind of serendipitous, but it's not the kind of thing that's gonna happen without a plan, without something in place that's going to work to get funding, to attract funding, to convince people that they can do something, or we can talk about pieces of property in town that could possibly be used for affordable housing. And, you know, if you sat 10 people down in town who lived here forever, they would tell you there are places in town you could build affordable housing. And they might not want them to be built near their home or in that neighborhood or here or there, but they would say, yeah, you can do this. And so if that's the case, and that was the most critical thing, I think it would be kind of silly for us to say, well, you know, we don't have anything in place, so we're not gonna talk about it, and we're not gonna put something out there to allow it. And I know we've got a master plan activity coming up in 25, I guess. We don't have to wait for a master plan to do something.
What you're talking about is increased density road. To have, because we have 200-foot frontage requirements. We looked at a long time ago, Bartlett has 50 feet. We looked at maybe making them 100 feet instead of 50 to 200 feet. We had a build-out analysis that really didn't answer this question. But the last time we did a build-out analysis was 2014. So maybe to address that, we should have another build-out analysis and see where we could put in a denser, or not a 200-foot frontage, but maybe a 100-foot frontage that would allow for clustering or something that, and identify the places, and that's what a build-out analysis would do, the places that would provide for less expensive homes. The topography of Jackson, the fact that we don't have sewer and water all over the place, town water, that it precludes some of the cost associated with building in Jackson, the rocky soil, the soil, everything else, compared to Conway that has lots of flat areas. The Habitat for Humanity is working on building 10 to 15 houses a year instead of 2 or 3. So Jackson has some topography issues that are hard to deal with. Doesn't mean we can't provide for more affordable houses than what we have.
I mean, my concern with increasing density isn't that that's going to be a problem in and of itself. It's just, I think it's only, even if it means more development, my gut feeling is it's not gonna drive pricing down. It's just we're just gonna sell more properties at the same high prices that they're at.
But you can't,
Because they're so huge.
you can't have affordable housing on 4-acre lots.
No, but if you have cluster development, you only need 200 feet for the whole parcel.
And then if you look at some of our ordinances that we put, and I referenced some of I know that if we put people in affordable housing and then their income goes up, we have an ordinance that says we have to put them
Kick
out,
them out, yeah.
which to me is absurd.
Well, and one thing that Mike will face if he builds his affordable housing is he's going to have staff that move in to have staff, but then, you know, take another job. So you're gonna kick them out.
Well, you could say that,
But that's a private,
you could say that they had to work for for the town of Jackson, that would keep their income low.
Exactly. Well,
I mean, part of the
it's
problem.
getting late, but that's something to think about, that, you know, based on the difficulty of getting employees, that maybe the town could co-op some properties that could at a reduced rate offer to, as an enhancement to get employees to come to town.
Could you build the ordinance where you could shorten the frontage if it's going to be allocated? Because my fear is
We have that already.
that you can shorten the frontage
Yeah.
if it's allocated. Oh,
Yeah, we did that. The question is it enough?
Yeah,
Like,
right.
it's 125, not 100,
Right.
and we
And
moved
Marlon's
it.
got 50.
Right, but I just think that you'll end up with more properties that sell at very high prices.
right, that's my
I
fear.
mean, right now, I went to
But
a
the-
presentation, there are,
The problem isn't just in Jackson.
Right,
it's on both coasts.
there are 1,500 homes for sale in New Hampshire. Right now. Think about that.
Isn't that absurd?
How many real estate agents are there? Probably 15,000.
At least, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
you know.
and then you look at how many lodging rooms there are
Right.
in Carroll County. Thousands and thousands and thousands.
Yeah, I was
And the other issue is that even if the land is completely free, the cost of construction is so high.
Yeah.
You know, an 800 square foot home is gonna cost close to $200,000 for a mini home. Or five
It's higher,
the
yeah.
garage.
For 800 foot square foot.
It was how much?
So
That's the number I would.
350 per square foot.
I was talking to some, the
Right, I
physical
know.
therapist, she has her, a young girl.
And that's without the gold plated seats.
That's correct.
And so
No,
your
it's-
800 foot home for 300,000, if you're a developer. And you wanna make 10% on that, that's 30,000, so that's
You're not-
2,500 a month, right?
So there's homes just north of my store, you know, they're putting in that property,
Yeah.
your mom.
Yeah.
They were originally gonna be in the.
999, yeah.
Now they're a million,
Yeah, I was
and
thinking,
they're selling.
and they're monstrous.
Apparently, we should develop that property.
My physical therapist, her and her husband live up in Intervale. And on Dundee, well, even on Intervale, she has friends, she has a friend that her and her husband wanna build up there. They can't find property, they can't afford even the property to build the house.
Now, one thing that in Colorado that was done, and I did not even, had never heard of, is that they were able to work with the Forest Service. And use the Forest Service land for affordable housing. You know, Jackson has what, 75%.
They
That'd be a wonderful thing for Jackson.
Yeah.
Well, because there's so much of it.
Yeah, and we're not taking any developer land away from Jackson. And so that's something I'm going to look into, how that ties into something like this, but.
We keep on sharing articles on anything we can find.
And when Jay Home back, you know, a few years ago, talked with Habitat for Humanity. And because so many of that group are from Jackson, the idea of having a development to work on here in Jackson, they thought would be the greatest thing. So, I mean, I don't know, is it feasible to create a fund or trust that money gets put into, I think, towards.
I think we should propose it.
Yeah.
Well, let's start the commission.
I think we should do both things. I think we should establish a housing, recommend the establishment of a housing commission. And initial funding and throw a number, 150,000, whatever you put the number.
The state has one, has an organization within the state government looking at this. Maybe we can, I mean, I've never taken the time to look into it, but I know the state has funded it in some level.
So we need to create something to begin the process, and we should put some initial funding in order to make that work.
Okay. So I'll follow up in the state.
That's my thought. I don't know.
No, I agree.
It's,
There's no question that there's a need.
And the time is right to ask.
Exactly.
okay, did we cover town-owned building before, I mean, you have carpeting and windows, solar power, solar power is a whole nother guy. You wanna hit that one?
No, well, I was gonna say, I could plug in for, up at the transfer station, oh, one of the vendors, did a pretty good, turnout for it. But, okay, so the big cost was, $101,500. 30% federal tax credit, which I'm not confident in how long that would last. If we were to be able to just charge that and do it, yes, I think we would get it within the next year or so. But I don't think that's gonna hold up.
Technically, it holds for like 5-7 years.
Yeah, it's the IRA, this investment,
They haven't published the guidelines for that yet, for municipals or nonprofits. And the way that is summarized to work is that you build your solar system and then you get reimbursed 30%. So you have to come up with money to do it first. It's a payback afterwards, as opposed to, and with the residential, the private ownership, that is the tax benefit. So that's all being set up through the IRS.
Okay, so the numbers for this were, this is up at the transfer, 40 panels, ground array. We've got some figures on the output, I don't think. 30,000 with a tax credit, 15-year fixed rate loan. Payments would be, say, $850 a month, $850 a month. Net investment after the tax credit would be $71,000.
And what do you get for the power?
Annual production about 17,800 kilowatts.
And that goes into the grid and then you get that credit back.
Yes,
And what's that worth? That many kilowatts?
I never,
No, we're paying out
rates just
850 a
went
month.
down to what, 11 cents a kilowatt.
Yeah.
My electric cooperative bill came in lower than I've ever had it. It was down to $26.
oh,
So how many kilowatts was it?
17,820.
that's an annual production.
Annual production.
But there's no monthly cost if we just pay the 78,000. There's no monthly cost if we pay the 71,000 upfront and 1,000 upfront.
Right.
Well, you have to pay that $30 a month for the meter.
Oh, $30.
I just, well, because they paid too much last year.
But if you're paying 800, is it 850 a month?
If you're finding.
That's if we were just,
We were
take a
financing
loan.
that. And so then the other choice would be to say, here's the dollar amount, or here's this, and again, make those selectmen play the way they put it in transfer station.
Well, we looked at it, there's a pretty good chunk of land. It runs east and west. But you get a good southern exposure, although you've got mountains on either side. You've got that little. And he could get the horizon both ways. And, you know, that's why he got the production.
And that was Jackson then. It was on Jackson Way, not Bowie.
No, it's the old transfer station.
Old transfer.
Oh, right, it's now on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I should have said that. Yeah, Moon Road, and, you know, we'd have to do some clearing, but it's really kind of a lovely little straightforward,
But the taxpayers are gonna say, what do I get on?
unless you did. How's it?
Verizon?
Well, because we own it, I mean, or the town owns.
Yeah, I
it.
never thought about that piece of property.
Or you could do
I
both.
always thought of it as the old dump, not a piece of.
Property.
Yeah.
Mm.
But, you know, you've got the
Come on.
access road.
You may not wanna build your affordable housing on it.
But they still do the well monitoring.
Spent a lot of time back when it's just the continuous burning.
I thought way back, that we were,
Spray paint.
got to the end of monitors.
There is.
And then they came back and said, no, you have to do it forever.
But it's always been clear,
We've never had
the issue.
any,
But who's gonna get the power?
I am. All power to me.
Okay.
Energy's are.
You can, through net metering. In other words, if the town gets these bills from, you know, the old library.
Okay, so it'll support other town
But
buildings,
anybody in that building,
right?
we can apply whatever is produced up there to that.
Alright.
Okay.
So we can get maybe some slightly better numbers, but again, recommendation wise, this one sounds like a no brainer. To recommend it and say, let's do it, and they can decide how they wanna do it.
Yeah.
Whether they wanna fund it up front and then have it pay for itself, amortized over the years. Or if they wanna go into a loan situation. It's not. I think we've hit everything we've got here. Except for ambulance and well, we can catch that next.
We talked about the grazing garage.
Grazing garage, I got, waiting for one quote,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
waiting for one quote, I had a contractor come out and eyeball it to repair.
What to repair it?
Yeah.
Okay,
So I've got, then I'm having Tamarack come out
okay.
in the next week or two, just to give me a quote, and I think this is a project they would do. But
I know they do a lot of storage in there. and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
yeah, so,
if nothing else, just have the greenery around and paint it.
well, the problem is the foundation is gone in the back
Yeah, I knew that.
in the front.
and the front and on the right side.
Yeah.
So
And on the
basically,
side.
big party, big
And in the
blow of wind, if we had a big, just like tip over and
Mhm.
collapse. And so I just want two confirmed people to tell me that.
Okay,
And then I'll probably come back to the selectmen and say, we just need to tear it down.
Mhm.
And then you just have to figure out storage.
Mhm.
And there's the highway department, which owns most of the stuff that's in that building. Do they get storage containers and put them up by their building up there? Get their stuff out of there. And fire department has a few odds and ends, police department has a few odds and ends. Town has a few odds and ends of old stuff that's has about this much dirt on it, so I don't know how really useful it is. The chamber's got some stuff in it, but mostly it's the highway. And I looked into storage containers, and you can buy storage containers very inexpensive. And they can put it up in their area there and store all of their wood and their concrete and their 100 tires that they have in that building. I don't know why they have so many tires.
Because they can.
Yeah,
yeah. thank you.
so, and then we would just tear it down, we could make a green space, make it a park.
Affordable housing.
The problem is, it's the one contractor said it's so low and you're so close to the river,
Yeah,
I don't know if you'd get a septic approval.
We looked at that.
But you
Jail.
could put things like basketball courts.
That's what I'm saying.
Pickleball courts, bocce ball courts.
Yeah.
A recreation area.
Yeah,
it would look really nice there.
yeah, and it would look nice, you know, it's some
And
grass,
people would enjoy it.
right? Right, I mean, you'd get use out of it,
And that's one of the things that the facilities committee. kept
we didn't have a lot of
referring
activity.
to, a recreational.
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
If you
So,
put
and you are
a
close to-
pickleball court in, though, you're gonna have a complaint from Pratt. Because we've already gone through that over the tennis club.
The whack, whack.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're talking about pickleball, yeah.
There was a great article.
It's pretty quick, like Crotch Trail, and it's connecting to the trail. Connects to the walking trail, the ski trail, I mean, it would look really nice to be more of a recreational
But
support.
they've come up with quieter pickleballs too. Yeah,
Have you?
yeah,
Wow.
doesn't go whack.
They're using badminton shuttle.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, okay, there you go.
I never had article already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then, based on your conversation last week, which I thought 2 weeks ago, I added the emergency management, because we didn't have it on there.
Okay,
I have a call with Emily, next week. You raised a good point, like Whitney Center is our emergency center,
Right.
there's no cots.
They actually have cots.
Hmm?
They own cots.
Really?
Yeah, but the question is,
Who owns one?
would it be appropriate to have the 70 cots, people sleeping in there? I mean, there's bathroom facilities and cooking facilities, it works great that way, but it's, you know, who knows what disaster would befall us, that we would have to house people for an extended period.
Well, that's what I'm gonna ask her, it's like, and then again, I'm gonna throw it out there,
But that's.
10 years from now,
That definitely fall away.
what do you see us needing in 10 years?
Yeah.
You know, power outages is probably our biggest.
Yeah, and we've had that, in my lifetime here, we're out, what, 12 days?
So I threw it on there because you brought it up and I was like, yeah,
But Emily has the answers.
so. I haven't-
in my lifetime, it's only been 5 days.
That's right, that was last year, wasn't it? Yeah. 5 or 6 days.
I'm talking about the ice storm.
Ice cream, not-
No,
Really?
I haven't been here this long. All right, I think we've made some good progress. I don't think we got everything that we need to get done, but that's a good start.
Yeah. Thank you very much for
Yeah.
the sheet,
Oh,
Yeah.
but that was really.
Good start.
It was
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of work.
Good job.
Well done.
I'm gonna end the call and then.
Do I have official motion? I heard a motion, was that a
Have
motion?
fun.
Do I hear a second?